Hey, you're listening to The Champion's Mind, and I'm your host, Myra Fields. This episode is about resets, the kind you don't plan, the ones that feel a little bit scary but end up being the best thing for you. If you ever asked yourself, who am I without the thing I've always been known for? This one's for you. Today, I'm sharing what it looked like to step away from the game, sit with myself, and come back to basketball from a completely different place. Have you ever hit pause on something that used to define you? Whether it's your career, your sport, your role in someone else's life, suddenly you're left asking, what's left of me without it? This episode is about what happens in that space and how to come back stronger, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally too. So I'll dive in a little bit about my 2-year reset. Right after the 2016 Rio Olympics, I started my journey on being a professional basketball player. So it was my first year ever playing pro after the Olympics. And I was ready just to really see what it's like to, one, become an adult where I was no longer in university. I had just graduated and now is actually making a living through a sport that I thought I loved. And in that moment, I started to really just look at my future for what it could be, how it would look like in terms of me being a professional basketball player overseas and how that was going to be the long-term goal and how I was going to achieve everything I wanted to. Got to Turkey. It was very different. America, I lived in California, I went to UCLA, and then having to go to Turkey in a place that was very secluded. Actually, there wasn't a lot of people who looked like me. Obviously, my teammates didn't speak any English. Some did, but most of them didn't. And then just being in that new environment and having to adapt was a lot for me. But I was eager really to take on the new challenge and want to prove myself and prove my reputation as a really good basketball player overseas and as a professional. It was usually we'd just have practices every single day. And then on the weekends we would have games. So that was kind of the routine. And in those moments, I was getting this feeling that I just didn't feel the drive like I used to. And this actually started earlier when I was in the Rio Olympics. I did feel the hype and the sense of urgency and the drive to really excel and be the best I could be at my sport. But after winning a gold medal, after attending Olympics, after getting drafted, my biggest dream I've ever had was to be drafted and play the WNBA. After I achieved everything I had written on my list of achievements as a young girl, I had achieved everything I wanted. And in that moment, I kind of just felt a sense of emptiness. And that's where I really started to notice that something's different. So when I did start playing professionally, I was making really good money. I felt like I was super comfortable in my performance. Financially, I could provide for myself, which was different from my childhood where we never could financially support our family or ourselves. And we're always trying to struggle and figure out what was the next thing so we could eat, or even just not having that security of knowing that we'll have food in the fridge or that our house wasn't going to be taken away from us because we didn't pay rent. So I got to a place where I was really comfortable financially. I had achieved everything I wanted, yet I still had this feeling is this it? And I really started to notice and take account of the moments where I would go to practice. And usually I would love going to practice because it was something that could challenge me and help me become a better basketball player. But I started to notice that I didn't actually love going to practice. Every time I had to get ready 10 minutes, 20 minutes before going out the door, I just felt this resistance that every time I did it, every single day, it continued to grow. And it got to the point where I could no longer ignore it. Even the games were feeling a little bit dull, and I wasn't really loving it the way I used to. And during this time on the background, beyond the court, I was doing a lot of self-work, working with a life coach, doing therapy, really trying to get more understanding of what I went through, how I processed that, and the pain that I had within that I thought wasn't pain, but really was a lot of pain that I used as fuel to become a really high achiever and a really great basketball player. So once I got a little bit of that understanding of how basketball, one, was a way that I used as a way to mask the pain that I had endured in childhood, and how the uncertainty of not being financially free or not having the financial means to just meet all of my needs. So once I really started to get to a place where I was financially independent, I was making good money, a lot of money than I've ever made in my life. I'd achieved everything I wanted to. At that point, I had been drafted to WNBA, was playing the WNBA, was playing overseas, and went to Olympics, won a gold medal. all the things that I ever dreamed of and wrote down on my list as a young child that I wanted to achieve, I had achieved it. However, I didn't feel any different inside, but I started to realize that I no longer had the drive to push myself to be the best every day in practice and in the games. And I started to notice that the games felt very dull. Even if we won, even if I had a great game, the practices started to feel harder. I really had to like push myself mentally, physically, just to even attend a practice. And when I was there, I just couldn't wait for it to end. I really started to notice that the love for the game was no longer there and that I was just doing it because I felt like I had to. So I came to a moment in my career where I was just like, what am I going to do? Am I going to keep pushing myself in a way where I know I don't have the love for the game? I know I don't want to do this and it's not something that I enjoy. And having to sit with that thought and that realization got me to a place where I was just like, you know what? I'm ready to figure out what's next for me. And at that moment, I think after that year, I decided to retire. It was early retirement. I was probably only like 25, 26, really early in my career. And everybody was just like, you really are retiring at such a young age. Like, what's happening? But I knew that basketball was no longer something that I loved to do. I knew I couldn't play the game if I didn't have that joy and love for it. So I had to figure out where it went and how to redefine it. So after my retirement, I actually just thought I wanted to go into business. So I retired, found a place for myself. I moved to Toronto. I'm originally from Montreal. And then I wanted to get into business. I knew that after basketball, my other interest was business. So at that point, my uncle, who owned like a commercial cleaning business, I said that he was making great money. It was a great investment. So that's what I did. Opened up a business right before COVID. It ended up doing really well. And I had a lot of success doing it, but I found that I didn't have that interest. So during that time, I was also doing more therapy, more life coaching to figure out my traumas and try to find a place of healing. And one thing that came from that was I realized that I never really loved basketball. I thought I did, but I really used basketball as a way to get out of the hood and to get out of a place of uncertainty where there was a lot of crime. There was a lot of times where we didn't know we were going to have food or we didn't know if we were going to have shelter. At times, we were homeless. I actually lived in a homeless shelter with my mom, and how all of that played a part in me using the pain of that to mask it as love for basketball. And honestly, that's what caused my purpose and the motivation behind me wanting to be a high achiever in basketball was the fact that I was enduring so much pain within that I was using basketball as a way to distract and also as fuel to push myself to be the best. And that's when I realized once I got to a place of financial stability and once I had healed that, the love I thought I had for basketball was actually no longer there. And that's when I started having to reset and redefine the purpose I was going to take into basketball if I decided to come out of retirement and start again. So yeah, going into that, why the pause was necessary was because, like I said, I had to redefine the purpose I had for basketball. And because I no longer had the love for basketball like I did in the beginning, or at least that I thought I did, I had to figure out how to find the motivation within because that had dissipated. And just to reference something that was super impactful to me, I'd like to just mention this. Sometimes stepping away isn't quitting, it's choosing healing. And you can't always see the value of a reset until you're on the other side of it. Initially, I really just thought like, okay, my life was done. I had never really contemplated a life beyond basketball. And that's something I had always known from the time I was a younger girl that that was going to be my life. So to come to a place where I was finally having to contemplate what it would look like to build an identity outside of basketball, that was very terrifying. And obviously, it was something that I had to think a lot about before making a decision. But ultimately, I knew I had to do it in order to grow. So just going into that, I really did have to reevaluate like the game and my relationship to the game. And for anybody who's a high performance or who knows a little bit about it, when you're committed to something that much, it literally becomes your identity. And as people know, like a lot of athletes go into this phase when they're transitioning out of sport that sometimes falls into depression because it's like grieving a part of yourself that you had put so much effort, made so many sacrifices, and had pursued for most of your life as a child and into adulthood, that when you lose that side of yourself, it's like you're losing a part of yourself. And I never had much understood that. I really was somebody who knew that I know I'm a basketball player, but I also knew that I wasn't tied to it and it wasn't my identity. But simply I just saw basketball as a means to an end to get me out of poverty. And that was like my goal going into it. So I didn't so much identify with basketball as the person I am. I identified with the fact that I had pain and I felt like basketball was a way to heal the pain. And I ended up understanding that later it wasn't something that could heal the pain just by simply achieving the things I wanted to. And I just started to realize that the more I achieved, actually, the emptier I felt. And that's when I realized like the reset was super necessary. In that time when I did reset, I really did have to redefine my love for basketball. And what I realized was that now that I was in a place of healing and I had done most of the work to heal, and now that I didn't have the uncertainty of having my resources or having the financial security that I didn't have as a child, I had to redefine what that love would look like or why I wanted to play basketball. So during the 2-year reset, that's when I really took a lot of time to reflect and understand what it is that I wanted to redefine my purpose for in terms of like the love I had for basketball. And I knew that if I wanted to go back into basketball, I had to find the motivation within. And it wasn't going to be about external rewards, such as like scoring a lot of points or winning a championship. It had to be something deeper. So I restarted that process of finding that love for basketball again. And I had to redefine what it would look like for me. And ultimately, what it looked like for me was that people say like ball is life, but I really tried to use that term in a way that was going to benefit me. So to me, basketball was life, but it was a way for me to cultivate the human I wanted to become, the person I wanted to become, in a way that if I could succeed on the court, that everything I learned as an athlete on the court would translate to my life, would help make the person I want to become in the future. So in that reset year or 2 years of reset, the reason why it was so important was because I needed to figure out how to redefine love in terms of my love for the game in a way that was one going to benefit me beyond the court. And that's where I started to cultivate a new love for the game where it wasn't about stats, it wasn't about championships, it wasn't about medals, but it was really about how can I use basketball in a way that was going to make me the best version of myself. And as long as I was able to do that within basketball, then I knew that the process of achieving that was going to be something that I enjoyed and loved. And that's how I redefined my love for basketball after I took the 2-year reset. So now I was in a place where I had redefined my purpose and my love for basketball out of a place that was built on a growth mindset and really just building character and enjoying the process of doing that. So once I had did all the work, did all the healing, redefined the values that I had for myself and redefined my love for basketball, I was ready to come out of retirement. So I officially announced that I would be coming out of retirement. This was during the time where it was the pandemic and the Tokyo Olympics were pushed back because of the pandemic. So during that time when I was in reset, I actually didn't touch a basketball. I didn't even watch basketball. I had completely disassociated and detached myself from basketball. And when I decided to come out of it, it was the pandemic. I think we had a year until Tokyo. And that's when I started the journey of getting back in shape and trying to push myself to be as in shape and as best physically, mentally, emotionally to compete to be on the Tokyo Olympic team. And Tokyo Olympic comes around. I get the invite for Team Canada to go in and compete as one of the Olympic athletes that would fight for a spot that year for the Olympics. I end up making the team, but now I just have this new sense of identity, this new sense of why I'm here. And that actually helped me become just a better player. If I look at my stats from Rio versus Tokyo, I actually had a better Olympic experience in terms of stats and statistics and performance compared to Rio because I was not in it, for one, to prove myself in terms of stats, scoring 20 points or more, being the best scorer, or just being the best athlete on the court. To me, I had redefined my love and purpose for basketball for being this person where every situation I had endured on the court was in some way going to help me cultivate a skill that would help me be a better person and a better version of myself. So how I showed up when the pressure was the highest or how I showed up when things didn't go my way was more important to me than having a great game. And what that mindset going into Tokyo, I had one exceeded and surpassed all of my expectations of one being one of the best players on the team and performing statistically the highest of any Olympics I had attended that year, because I knew that my identity as an athlete was more than just a basketball player. And basketball simply was a means to help me grow and become the person I wanted. And with that mindset and that reframing, it allowed me, one, to not feel as much pressure in the moment, to understand that failure and setback is really just an opportunity to grow. And with every setback and opportunity to prove myself in that moment, I actually just became better without feeling like because I didn't have a good game, it meant like I wasn't growing. But no, because I didn't have a good game, it gave me an opportunity to learn, grow, and be better. And that allowed me to, one, excel and push my performance to a new height that I never had at that point and stage in my career. So what allowed me to really excel at the highest level I had ever done at any Olympics was the fact that I was reclaiming rest as a part of my growth and understanding that I didn't need rest because I was broken. I simply needed it as a way to grow. And in the 2 years that I did take to rest and fully recover emotionally, physically, and psychologically, all those things contributed to, one, me being able to excel at a really high level at the Tokyo Olympics. And in that space, I really had to redefine rest. Before I took my reset for the 2 years, it was really something that I didn't really understand I needed or didn't feel comfortable doing at all. Like, I remember feeling very guilty or having a lot of shame around taking a rest day. Like the moments where I was just sitting around doing nothing, I felt so guilty, like I was doing something wrong. And that led me to, one, come to a place where I was always performing at less than 100% because I never really gave my body the space that it needed to fully recover. So in the 2 years, I was able to reclaim that for myself and be able to redefine it as a way of, one, helping myself recover, but most importantly, helping myself to grow. Because in times where you're challenging yourself and pushing yourself, those moments are great, but they're not going to be ultimately used or be the most beneficial to you if it doesn't come with a place of rest, because really that's where all of the growth and all of the rebuilding actually happens. And in that 2 years, I was able to reclaim it and understand that you need the rest in order to grow. And that's part of the journey. So this part is really about becoming more than what you do. So you're not just an athlete. You're not your career. You're something beyond all of that. And in the times where I did take the time to reset and figure that out, it actually allowed me to detach from the sport. In the beginning, I was super attached to it. It really did consume me. I didn't have anything beyond the court that I really had interest in. Everything I did was, one, to make me a better basketball player. But in the time of reset, I really had to figure out what interests me beyond basketball, and really exploring that and diving into it honestly made me a better basketball after I came out of retirement, because I didn't have this super tight attachment to my sport, which, in one, helped me relieve some of the pressure of feeling like I had to achieve everything I said I would, or had to achieve at the highest level consistently all the time, because I was no longer super attached to my sport. It actually freed me up to play at my best because it wasn't like a make or break situation. And honestly, knowing that even if I didn't have a good game, or even if I didn't achieve everything I wanted to, knowing that that situation was just one part of my life and that I had multiple things I was interested in and really wanted to explore allowed me to, one, just be more freer in the game and allowed me to play at my best. So really just understanding, like, who are you beyond your sport, and whatever interests you have beyond your sport, your career, your job, really diving into that, because there actually is statistics that show that, like, most athletes who do have a interest beyond the court, they actually tend to perform better because now they're able to be very focused in the moment when they do attend their sport. And then when they're not in the sport or on the court and they have an opportunity to explore other interests, it actually just gives them time to, one, recover and come back with a more refreshed and more recovered mind to be able to perform at their highest ability. And that's what happened for me. I was just able to, one, understand that even if I did have a bad game, it wasn't the end of the world. There's things that I like to do beyond it, but I could always take something and learn from it and grow. And ultimately, that's what really helped me be my best in one basketball, but just in life in general. So here are just some actual takeaways that you can use to apply to your life. The first one is what you can try to do is ask yourself, if I couldn't do the thing I'm known for, who would I be? That would be number one. Number two, schedule rest days, not lazy days full of guilt, intentional pauses that help you reflect and reconnect. Number three, redefine what success looks like to you now. Is it peace, creativity, alignment? And number four, make space for parts of yourself that have nothing to do with achievement and nourish those. And the last one is, if you're in a reset season, trust it. It's not wasted time. It's groundwork for the next version of you. The reset isn't about starting over. It's about starting again with more clarity, more peace, and more power than you had before. If you're in that in-between space, know this. You're not behind. You're becoming. That version of yourself that doesn't need validation to feel whole. They're on their way. Take a few minutes this week to reflect. What it would look like to come back to yourself. Not the noise, not the pressure, just to you. If this resonated with you, subscribe to the next show so you don't miss what's next. And if you know someone who's in their own reset, send this their way. Thanks for tuning in. See you in the next one. And remember, your mindset is your power. Use it. Peace.